Good morning, everyone, and thank you for coming to support some truly amazing youth speakers. My name is Madison Daisy, and I'm the Advocacy and Outreach Coordinator at the Renew Oregon Coalition. I have the great honor of working alongside hundreds of youth from across the state to demand urgent, bold, and equitable climate action. My generation and those that follow will be forced to deal with the most catastrophic effects of climate change if lawmakers don't take action to protect our future today. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Jada. Good morning. My name is Jada Attorney, and I'm here to declare a climate emergency on behalf of my generation. I am 21 years old and an enrolled member of the Slut Indians. I am also president of the Slut Tribal Youth Council. The Youth Council undertakes projects to protect our traditional lands from being destroyed by pollution and toxic waste. I'm also vice president of the Native Indigenous Student Union at Willamette University, where I'm a junior. I grew up in rural Oregon on land that was traditional home of the California Indians. Today, it's a small town called Brownsville, outside of Albany, with about 1,800 people. We are most famous for a movie that came out before I was born, Stand By Me, was filmed there. And long before I was born, scientists warned our elected leaders a climate crisis was coming. And those leaders have done almost nothing to stop it. Now our state is feeling the impacts of climate change. My people have self-sustained by traditional foods our entire history. It hasn't been until recently that we have had such a decline of salmon in our rivers. The causes can be directly linked to climate change and pollution in our Siletz River. Our traditional way of life and culture is in danger. It makes me so angry to hear people being lied to by politicians who deny the climate crisis is happening. It's caused by us to be divided instead of all working together for solutions. Polluting industries say things to scare people, like they'll lose their jobs or everything will be so expensive if we take climate action, when that hasn't been true in other places. Big companies and climate deniers use fear to fire people up and stop progress. The only opportunities for a lot of people growing up where I did is to work in logging or farming. Yet those jobs are becoming harder to depend on, both because of global economic pressures and also the climate crisis. If we continue seeing warning, drought and wildfires get worse and worse, families won't be able to survive on this. That gives me some hope. What gives me some hope is the solution to climate crisis is a clean energy transition, which means a lot of opportunities for well-paying jobs for people who work in construction, engineering, electricity, and more. It's fixing up buildings and homes to use energy more efficiently to lower people's bills, which will help a lot of families and cut down the climate pollution. Proper farming and taking better care of forests are also climate solutions and job creators because soil, plants, wetlands, and trees all soak in greenhouse gases instead of allowing them to heat the earth. A more sustainable balance between people and nature is needed, as Indigenous people once did. I first became involved in trying to make the environment better when I learned our river was polluted. I have led cleanups and education efforts. Pollution, whether it's local or global, is harming our health and the natural systems we depend on for food. The climate crisis is about human suffering that can be avoided if we act quickly and more boldly than we can imagine. My generation is having to suffer the outcomes of adults not taking care of our earth. It's time for them to start listening to us. We are scared. Let us determine how we want our future to look. Make the important decision and take the big actions to hold polluters accountable and give our generation a healthy world. Give our communities the resources to sustain our environments and protect our Indigenous foods for the next generations to come. It's your responsibility to leave us with a healthy world.
Hi, my name is Rhylie Woodley, and I'm here to declare a climate emergency on behalf of my generation. I'm a senior at Grant High School in Portland and a member of the Constitution team, and someday I hope to run for office. And while I've never been able to vote before, I'm almost 18, and for the first time, I'll cast my ballot this November. There are thousands of us ready to vote for the first time, in Oregon and across the country. And one of the biggest issues on our minds is stopping the climate crisis. I'm frustrated because I'm just now getting a seat at the table. The science showing global warming is caused by burning fossil fuels has been known for more than 30 years, over twice my lifetime. Yet countless adults who won't have to live through the worst of the consequences continue to sit back and condemn our futures before we'll even have the chance to explore our dreams and aspirations. It's staggering to me that the fight for proper climate legislation has been occurring for my entire life, yet failing to produce legislation effective enough to save this planet and my generation. Now we're experiencing the impacts of the climate crisis, and scientists have given us 10 years to significantly cut our climate pollution before it's too late. We see the effects on our beautiful state all around us, in the wildfires that have plunged Oregon skies into a hazardous zone of smoke, in limited outdoor recreation due to poor air quality, in warming water and fluctuating sea levels that are killing thousands of indigenous salmon every year. Because this is not just a faraway problem, this is a community problem. This is our home I'm talking about. This is our home that's dying. But as the ocean rises, so do we. More and more of us are progressing into adulthood, and be forewarned, we will not sit idly. Hope is not yet lost. A lot can be done in 10 years, but it won't happen on its own. We need action at every level, city, state, and national, using our collective power to hold the large polluters accountable and make them change our ways to save our future. For the time being, climate deniers are in charge of our country, so our state has to step up. Oregon has been a trailblazer for climate solutions and environmental conservation before, but we're falling behind now. I was in middle school the last time the legislature passed a meaningful climate protection law, and this June, I will graduate. There is no more time to waste. Much like millions of young people across the world, I marched in the global climate strike last September. It was empowering and incredibly hopeful to be reminded that young people are holding those in power accountable, that there are millions of us fighting to make it impossible for the adults who have continuously failed us to ignore us. We're angry and we're fired up, and will only grow stronger as we continue to unite across international borders. We won't settle for just any solution. We want climate justice, where those communities most harmed by the crisis are helped first. Those with the power to make the decisions right now, everything you do next matters. We are watching, we are organizing. Don't let us down.
My name is Maia Stout, and I'm here to declare emergency on behalf of my generation. I'm a 15-year-old freshman at Newport High School. I live in Yachats, and I've spent the past 2 years as a leader of Oregon Youth for Climate, along with 2 local advocates, Haley Fueling and Cadence Redwine. We're a group who encourages taking action and educating to mitigate the effects of climate change, both on a local and global scale. I'm also a radio show host of Healthy Diet, Healthy Planet, and was honored as Woman of the Year for the National Organization of Women. I understand people see me as a young teenager who would normally be worried about earning good grades and having fun with my friends. However, I spend the moment I get home to when I fall asleep at night advocating and writing speeches, because I was born in this moment of history where my town, our state, and my entire generation faces a crisis. It terrifies me that scientists tell us what great disasters are coming, and then to see adults in leadership unable to do their job and rise to the action of stopping it. I advocate for climate because I understand the mistakes we make don't fix themselves. I raise my voice because I can't vote for 3 more years and time is running out. Scientists gave us 10 years to make significant changes to reduce climate pollution. An Oregon student in 2nd grade today will be just graduating high school when their climate fate is sealed. All existing problems will be worsened by the climate crisis. My family lives 45 minutes away from my school because our town does not have enough affordable housing. What will happen when California faces massive climate-fueled wildfires? or parts of Arizona become too hot to live in and people relocate into places like Oregon. We have the solutions. We are just ignorant to using them. Newport's economy depends upon the income of fishing and logging industries, both of which are not sustainable on our current rate of consumption. Climate change destroys not only these resources, but the jobs and economy that is supported by it. It'll take generations to recover, if it ever recovers at all. We need to switch to healthy alternatives for energy and sustainable practice to help the forests, rivers, and our ocean. We need a climate action plan today and a climate curriculum to help my generation stop these mistakes from ever being made again. Affordable housing has to be built near people's jobs and in towns, housing that uses less energy or even makes its own with solar. Less driving and energy savings will mean less climate pollution. Construction, electricity, and manufacturing will create jobs that can't be outsourced. That is something my town very greatly needs. A wealthy fossil fuel industry uses fear and misinformation to get rural, working people to deny climate change and fight against climate action. If they cared so much about our communities, they'd invest in making them better. But instead, they replace people's jobs with machines. These large corporations are the problem. They are not fighting for my community's future. We are proof that no one is too small to make a difference. This movement was started with a few of us and has grown all over Oregon. Thousands of young people striking from school for climate action. We strike knowing the possible implications of our truancy. We understand that education is a privilege. But what is our right to education if we are being denied the right to a future? Like Greta, I want you to be scared. I want you to act as if the house was on fire. Right now, we have to work our hardest to fix the mistakes we've made. If a few children can spark a global movement, then imagine what we could do if all of the communities united. It's not just my future, it's all of ours. Our elected leaders have the choice right now to pick which path they are willing to take. We must decide what future we want for those who inherit this earth. Help us fix the world that is dropped by the hands of ignorance. Help us. I am here to declare a universal state of emergency. I am calling for climate action. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Shreya Chinna. I'm here today to declare a climate emergency on behalf of my generation. On March 15th, the first global climate strike took place. I wanted to get involved, but didn't know how. It began with 7 of us at our school's Environmental Justice Club. The momentum and purpose quickly swept me up. I made posters and graphics. During lunch, I paced the hallways, speaking to every cluster of students, explaining why striking is important. I spoke to at least 500 people. The day of the strike, 700 from my school alone stood up in their classrooms and swarmed our hallways in protest of our government's inaction against the climate crisis. I held a megaphone and led chants while everyone followed me down Portland's streets. I had never done anything like this, but it felt natural to me. Thousands of young people gathered in front of our city hall, where the plaza was so filled and chaotic I could no longer locate my friends. Since that day, I've been eternally inspired to live a life dedicated to advocacy and service. When I think about the climate crisis, every bone in my body is awakened and alarmed. Immediately, I tense up and cringe because I cannot begin to fathom what it's going to take to fix all of the damage. And I was planning on naming a really long list of terrible impacts that consume my thoughts every day, but I won't. I worry deeply for my friends and family in Portland, where we recently broke the summer record for 90-degree days, and the skies have filled with wildfire smoke. Approximately 11,000 miles away from where I would call home, my grandparents live in a small village in southeast India. They farm on 10 acres of land growing mangoes, sugarcane, and coconuts. As a young girl, I took all of this for granted. Life was different in India, and I knew that, but I never really understood how different. Today, when I learn about ways we can fight and combat the climate crisis, I learn about habits that are already practiced in India and places like India. I found a sense of respect for the land that was missing here at home. Granted, Portland no longer has winters filled with snow and daffodils bloom as early as February. When I learned in high school about climate change, it is more of a theoretical abstraction than the reality. Over the last few years, thousands of people have died from intense heat in India, reaching over 120 degrees during the day. The climate crisis is a human crisis. Fossil fuel pollution is causing human suffering. We don't have much time left, and we need entire systems to transform radically. Our government must step up to change the way we power our lives and economy because large corporate polluters won't do it voluntarily. Those in charge have failed for decades to take the steps needed to stop the climate crisis, and so now we're feeling its effects. At this moment of huge transformation, we have an opportunity to imagine and create an equitable, just, and fair economy and society. The communities most underserved by the dirty fossil fuel economy will be at the forefront of the new opportunities and investments that will come from the clean energy economy. Those most harmed by the climate crisis must be the first to receive protection from wildfire, drought, ocean acidification, heat waves, and extreme weather because that is what climate justice looks like. Our lawmakers must understand after decades of delay, they are the last ones who can do something about this crisis. Anything but ambitious climate action is just another way to deny the truth. This moment in human history right now is monumental because we are going to turn all of this around. I can already imagine. Oregon will become a leader in transitioning to an equitable, clean energy economy because that is the right thing to do right now in history. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Angelique Crater, and I am here to declare a climate emergency on behalf of my generation. I'm a student at Salem High School, and I currently work with a group called Latinos Unidos Siempre, which is a Latino political activism group that focuses on grassroots organizing to create political change. I'm also a leader in the youth movement, which brought hundreds of people to the streets of Salem and tens of thousands of people across the state of Oregon for the inspiring climate strike in September. And as a Latina woman, I recognize the harm that my communities face as a direct result of the corporate polluters in our state and ultimately as a result of climate change. Like many Latinx individuals, my parents immigrated to the United States from Mexico. They came here to create a safer future for themselves and to eventually be able to provide for a family. Both of them work the very laborious jobs that America has handed them. They work on the hottest, the coldest, the sunniest, and the rainiest days. If anyone understands the climate crisis, it is definitely my parents. The impacts of climate change leave them with skin overexposed to sun, hands overexposed to cold, and feet that are overexposed to a ground that continuously becomes less and less fertile for farming. But they have no choice to work in these conditions because they otherwise cannot provide for our family. For them, they are unable to function in this society by working in these otherwise unimaginable circumstances. But I know that I am not alone in this experience. Many youth have parents like mine that came here for a future. Today, I'm here to testify for this opportunity because we are currently having it ripped away for the profits of billion-dollar corporations. Now is the time to implement strong climate policy. Our legislators have had more than enough time to think about the potential impacts of climate policy like clean energy jobs, some members even running away and hiding out of state. While many of them will sit in their offices and never experience the frontline impacts of climate change, many of us will. We will breathe in the polluted air, we will drink the contaminated water, and we will watch the trees burn down with our futures. We are worth more than the money that these corporate industries fund you with. Instead of buying into this greed, corporate polluters need to be held accountable. This can be done through SB 1530, and it must be passed in 2020. Our demands are very simple. It's time for adults to take responsibility, to listen to the scientists, and to take significant action to stop the climate pollution that puts our futures at risk. We need Oregon's leadership to pass strong climate legislation and hold the largest corporate polluters accountable for what they're putting into our air. While they pollute for free, those least responsible for the problem suffer the highest cost. And finally, to those in power, the science has been clear for a very long time. You and those before you have failed for 30 years, nearly twice my lifetime, to take the bold action that you need to take. We demand today's politicians understand one thing. There is no next time, there is no next person, there is no next generation to solve this problem for you. You are it. Time is running out for us and for future generations. We hope you can deliver. Don't let us down.
Thank you everyone for joining us today. Please join us on February 11th in Salem as we demand bold climate action from our lawmakers.